Hotep, greetings. What I want to kind of talk about on this video, again, I'll try to address certain questions that I get in the email, kind of as a whole, because as I said before, it's kind of hard to answer all the questions on the emails. But real quick, before we get to the information that I want to talk about, just want a couple quick announcements. We will be back on the air this Thursday night on Awakening Universal Minds on TalkShoe.com. You can find that link right here on the YouTube channel. You can also find it on the Mother Nubia Inc. Google Plus channel with all the links to the shows, etc. That'll be this Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On the 27th, which is next Friday, we will be having the ritual of the Triad of Darkness and Light, which deals with harmony within the black adept of light and dark forces. Not going to get into detail about the ritual. You would have to attend to experience that. It'd be a waste of time for me to talk about that. In order to attend this ritual, as we've done in some previous ones, you do have to contact and notify us that you are coming so we can put you on the list. It is important that you show up on time for this ritual and dress accordingly. The flyer is finished. Those that are on the list have received the flyer. If you're on the email list or you're on the text list or you on the list via the radio show, if you're on one of those lists, you received that flyer, I believe the other day. If you are not on the list and have not received the flyer for the event on the 27th and you are interested in attending that event, you can email us at khnum19@gmail.com. We will get that flyer over to you. It has all the information on it: starting time, location, address, the ritual attire for the ritual, which, by the way, is either a black ritual robe or all black attire. No jeans, no shorts, no t-shirts. Very important. But all the information is on the flyer. You can email that email address, which is khnum19@gmail.com. Also, for anybody interested in consultation, you can contact me at the same email address. And again, to save the time as far as how a consultation works, etc. Consultation lasts up until an hour, and I charge $52 to do it. If you can't get to me in person, face to face, we can do it via Google Hangouts, which I prefer, Skype, email, or some form of social media app. It can be paid for via PayPal or Square. I request you pay it at least the day of or the day before the actual consultation, and I also request you try to give me at least 48 hours prior to before you want the consultation, because I can just go in order when I get them. Now, as far as how the consultation works, again, real simple. We can discuss anything you want to discuss. If you want to focus on an area, a topic, we can do that. If you want to just deal with things overall or in general, we can do that too. The consultation basically is dictated by you, how you want the flow of it to go, what areas. I will, in that consultation, communicate to you whatever archetypes or ancestral spirits that might come through during that consultation. I will communicate that with you and give you that information so you can utilize it. But again, people have utilized the consultations. If you're just beginning on this path and you want some information per se to set up altars or rituals, things of that nature, if you're advanced on the path and you want to focus on a particular area of study, that works too. But that's how the consultation works. Again, it lasts up until 1 hour. So till we're done, or 1 hour, whichever one comes first. And again, $52, and it can be paid for via PayPal or it can be paid via Square. So if you're interested in setting up a consultation, same email address, khnum19@gmail.com. All right, I guess the announcements out of the way. So what I want to focus on, particularly in this video, is enough of the fucking talk. Okay, and this is what I mean by that. It's too much talking going on, no work. Okay, as you know, as I do videos and classes, I just get straight to the point. Give you a topic, and I want to make this crystal clear. It's not that what I'm saying on a particular topic is the final thing, because again, I want to make this clear. Everybody has a different level on how they perceive truth. So we might perceive things a little different. By all means, you should seek out your own perception on certain spiritual things, because there's too much talking, fussing, and debate. What I mean by that is I left those schools of thought or those spiritual dogmas years ago, because it was just that. It was too much fucking talk and no work was getting done. So this is not a path about sitting around and talking about, one, what the problem is, because we all know what the fucking problem is. It's obvious. People suck. Just keep it real with you. People suck. I say that in the sense because nobody wants to take responsibility for their actions, okay? So what I mean by that, there's too much talking, not interested in sitting around talking about historical information. It serves a purpose to a certain extent, and I get that, but there's too much of it. I'm not interested in sitting around and listening to all of your personal spiritual experiences. As you know, that's, as I've said before in the past, that's just personal. It's different if we're dialoguing one-on-one and we've had similar experiences, but it's pointless if you're trying to tell me about this long, drawn-out experience that's not going to really make sense to me because I didn't experience anything similar. So some people want you to listen to these long, drawn-out personal experiences. It's not about that either. That's a waste of time, and I'm not interested in that, and I make that crystal clear. So we tend to, not focus on doing enough of work, and I'm going to get to a minute what I mean by work. And we just get into these debates and opinions, and we give out philosophies and interpretations, and we want to talk about our experiences and how special we are and how great we are, and nobody talks about, again, as I've said before in the past, the fucked up shit about themselves that they need to fix. All right, so let's address things along those lines. And like I said, back in the day, I was part of all of those conscious circles, and I saw there was no work being done to get results. I'm going to say this again, and obviously it's something that constantly needs to be repeated. If you're not getting results on whatever spiritual stuff you practice, then it's time for a change. It's that simple. That's how you gauge it. If you're not getting results on a spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and a financial level, then you need to really adjust and change what you're doing, because shit's not working. And again, as I said before, because you like something or you've been doing it so long, that doesn't mean that it's right. And sometimes the hardest pill to swallow is when drastic change comes your way. Because when you've been doing something for so long, it's like getting hit with a ton of bricks. And some people aren't prepared for it because it kind of rocks their world, shakes their foundation. And I've said before, if you go back to a lot of the older classes, on the older videos on this channel, one thing this path does when you start to set out on it, if you're sincere, okay, if your intention is pure, and I don't mean pure in a religious sense, I mean pure that you're focused on it, that you're really fueling your intent with that passion and that desire to get a result. If you are doing that, when you start out on this path, you will get great, abrupt change. I've said this before. Now here's the thing though, this is where people get a little bit lost. Sometimes that change, people have preconceived notions and set unrealistic expectations for the change that they're looking for. They've already categorized it. That's not how it works. What happens is, when you're sincere and the intent is fueled correctly, when you start out on this path, change comes to you, change that is needed, which is a little different than change that is wanted. So sometimes this shakes people's lives upside down. It could be to the point where the individual that they're with in the relationship, they come to the realization that's not the person for them. It could be the career that they're in, that gets turned upside down. They might lose their job, get fired out of nowhere, because their agathodemon, okay, or their personal demon has now emerged, and they're connecting with their true self, and it's leading them in another direction. So I've seen it happen so drastic, and I've seen it happen so minimal, where some people kind of are on the right path already, in the right direction, but just needed kind of a little push. But I always let people know, beware, this can go either way when you start out on this path. Don't be fooled and deceived to think, I'm going to come out on this path and I'm going to be this great master magician and I'm going to be wealthy. Yes, those things are possible if you are doing the correct things. But remember, change needed and change wanted are two entirely different things on this path. So always be prepared to face that adversity, okay? Or what we might call those difficult times. And I'm telling you, I see this all the time. Most people in the beginning stages, I'm not saying all, some people adapt and make the transition smooth, but I see a lot of people in that first year or so, they struggle. They struggle for a personal identity. They struggle with not meeting unrealistic expectations that they set for themselves, or they fooled and deceived themselves that this path is for them. And again, I'm going to stress, this path is not for everybody. And I don't say that because myself or anybody else on this path is special or better than anybody. It's just you got to have a certain psyche and mindset for this, because this path is about you being the God and ruler of your spirituality. It's a path of self-mastery. It's not a path about talking. Nobody gives a shit how great or special you think you are. Only person that gives a shit about that pretty much is you. And the reason why, some people that are what we like to call on this path, that don't last, we call them attention whores. And we say that in the sense that they seek attention, and when they don't get it, then they go somewhere else. And guess what? Then they go to that, wherever else it is they go. They don't get the attention there, then they leave that and go somewhere else, because they set the point like this is all about them. Okay? And it's not. There's a bigger scheme of things in this. And as I said, as you work the rituals on this path, let's talk now about doing the work. Okay? There's many different aspects of work on this path. There's many different rituals, spiritual systems, and ideologies one can use on this path and adjust to their own personal liking as far as what they need to do to suit their own spirituality. You can take, as I said before, you can read books on magic. You could read books on a multitude of different rituals on this path, as long as you put your touch on that ritual. You should never mimic something completely to its entirety without adding your personal touch. I don't care how great or small. No matter how great or small you add that personal touch to that ritual, what that does is stamp that ritual with your personal energy, and that makes it unique. But when you just mimic it word for word and copy something word for word, what you're really doing is tapping into the energy of the individual that wrote that ritual or created that ritual. And that's okay. But what will happen is, this is where some people get stuck in tradition, because then this is how traditions start. This is how religious dogmas and laws start, because then things get passed down. If it's not done this particular way or this way only, that is not correct. That's a bunch of bullshit. That's the biggest bullshit I've found out in my many years traveling on these different spiritual or conscious paths. What tends to happen is, as soon as you have your own viewpoint on something, you get ostracized, or your picture is painted about you in their term negative, because you're not going along with the norm. And one thing this path does, it's not a path of being a conformist. It's irrelevant to what everybody else is doing. And let me say that again. It's irrelevant to what everybody else is doing. What the fuck are you doing? You should be asking yourself. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing, what you don't like, what you're seeing. If that's the case, then you gravitate somewhere else and put yourself in a situation to things you do vibrate with, things that you do like, things that you can connect to. Because look, I've seen this shit for years. I would always have people, and I go back in the day now, I would have people come to classes for years, and these people would come week in and week out over the course of a several year period, and they would come to the class griping, bitching, and moaning about shit, or always trying to find fault in something, or always trying to find a point in the class where they can interject their bullshit. And my only response to them, after shutting it down, which was never a fucking problem, but after shutting it down, I would ask them, if you're in such disagreement with something, why do you continue to come to a place week in and week out where you disagree? We all can relate this to some shape or form or fashion to something in our life. It could be a club we belong to. It could be some group we're connected to. There's always that one fucking individual that always comes, and they come consistently, and they're probably more consistent and loyal than people that show up here and there, but they always got some bullshit that they bring with them. And I simply ask them, then why do you continue to come to something that you seem to always have a problem with? See, on this path, when you have a problem with something, you find a solution for it. See, if I'm dealing with something and I have no interest in it, I don't like it, or I don't agree with it, and that's personal, I got to deal with it personal. So what I do is, if there's a place that I go and I don't like, I just don't fucking go there no more. It's that easy. It's that simple. Or I find somewhere else that suits my own personal spiritual needs. It's that fucking simple. But see, this is what I mean when I say there's too much talking and no work. So the question is, if you spend more time doing work on yourself than more time gossiping and bitching and moaning about shit, you get a lot of shit done. Now, the rituals and the work that we do on this path is for that purpose, for personal transformation. We can liken it symbolically to what alchemy represents, or the philosopher's stone when we're dealing with alchemical principles, or when we're going back to ancient Egypt and dealing with one individual who is in the mystery system, right? Some will call that the alchemy system, the school of mystics, because the whole concept of alchemy is adjusted to the individual. Instead of the actual aspect of alchemy of turning lead-based metals into a liquid, etc., that process of an alchemical transformation, the difference is the individual that you're working on, or the thing that you're working on, is yourself. You're trying to transform it from one state to another, a better state. And when I say a better state for you, and that state of existence is going to vary from individual to individual. That's what Baphomet represents on this path, right? The symbol of Baphomet, right? Baphomet. And anybody that's an occultist or on the left-hand path shouldn't look at Baphomet as literally a deity. It's a symbolic archetype that represents everything that a black adept is striving to be. What is that? Again, we've gone over this a couple of times. Let's go over it again real quick. We won't stay on it too long. But Baphomet and many rituals that you do on this path is symbolic. You'll see the ritual is geared in the climax of the ritual. It's geared for you to raise yourself up and become like Baphomet. What is becoming like Baphomet? Really simple. What Baphomet represents, you see the masculine and the feminine energies, right? You see the face of a male goat. You see the breasts, the androgynous breasts. So it's an androgynous figure, male and female, masculine and feminine. You see the four elements represented. You see the scales in the abdomen representing the water. You see the flame or the kundalini rising from the pineal gland representing the fire element. You see the wings representing the air. You'll also see a representation as above, so below, right? As above, so below. The unique thing about this Baphomet symbol, go back to your old Christian architecture. Go back to your old Eastern European churches. Go back to your old Catholic Gothic style churches. You will always see this picture in a lot of the central basilicas of these churches of Jesus perched on the earth, right? With his hand up and his hand down. That's the same symbol as Baphomet. So these motherfuckers are confessing to you. Okay, they know what Baphomet represents. Okay, as I said before, in your Bible, the son of the morning star, that attribute is given to Lucifer and Jesus simultaneously in your Bible. In Revelations 22 verse 16, he's referred to as son of David, son of the morning star. Lucifer in 14:12, and Lucifer just means light bearer. Don't confuse Lucifer, Azazel, Satan, all these titles as being the same thing, because they're not. Leviathan, they're not. Everybody thinks that that's the same mythological character called the devil in the Bible. That's not. They're titles. Azazel means the one removed. Okay? You have also the scapegoat. Samael. You have all these different titles. And really the scapegoat, this fictitious character, the devil, was used as a scapegoat for this destructive God of the Bible's idiocy. Because as I said before, more death, destruction, and what people label as evil was committed by God of the Bible more than the so-called devil character. Because the Bible's full of nothing but bloodshed, war, animal sacrifice, blood sacrifice, rape, incest. This is what the Bible is built upon. I don't know why people act like it's not there, because they only focus on certain books that they like. But anyway, I won't get into that religious bullshit. But Baphomet, okay, that's what it truly represents. And as I said, Google it. Look for those images in those old traditional churches that's still there today. All you gotta do is Google, type in Jesus figure, Baphomet figure. You'll see the picture. Jesus perched on the earth in the same pose as a Baphomet figure. That's not a coincidence, people, okay? So Baphomet is not a deity. Baphomet is not some satanic entity that the Knights of Templar worship. I know people love them conspiracy theories, but as I've said before, if you're not a member of the Knights of Templar, how the fuck can you confirm that? The only way you can confirm that is by shit you read on YouTube and on the internet. And that's why I've said before, if you really want to know what these orders are about, and I'm telling you this from experience, if you really want to know what the Templar order is about, the Masonic orders, Order Templi Orientis, join the fucking orders and get the experience. And again, I'm not saying that because it's mandatory to, but if you really want to know and you really want to teach and you really want to correct the information, then the experience will give you that. Not the fucking sensationalism and the nonsense that you read on YouTube, because it's all garbage. Okay? There's a lot of good stuff in social media, but there's a lot of bullshit. Okay? So stop feeding in the conspiracy theories and passing them along as if they're 100% accurate and true, when you have no way to 100% confirm them other than what you read, heard, or what somebody told you. It's a bunch of bullshit. The best way to confirm something is through experience, and through that experience, that becomes a reality. That's when truth manifests and becomes real. When you can confirm it based on experiencing it, and now it becomes a reality. So people say, when and how do I decipher what real truth is? That's how you decipher what real truth is. Not because somebody wrote it in a book, not because somebody's passed it down for X amount of years. That doesn't make the shit true. Traditions have now been interpreted as being real truths, and that's the problem with religion, because most religion is based on tradition. That's the fucked up thing. So we got to learn to decipher between the two. So this is what Baphomet represents. Every individual should be striving to be on this path, should be striving to be what Baphomet represents. That's the true and cult interpretations of what Baphomet represents. It embodies all of those aspects of a Black Death. Even when you're dealing with sex magic, right? The ritual of the infernal union, right? Which is symbolic of the masculine and feminine energy. The energy of Samael, the masculine, the energy of Lilith, okay, the feminine. Now this works two ways. You can use Set, you can use Sekhmet, you can use Nephthys, you can use Kali. Anything that represents a powerful representation of those feminine and masculine forces can be used. In the traditional ritual, and I say traditional in the sense the most common one used, and again, you can adjust that. Anything you need to adjust to fit. The ritual is based on, it's called the infernal union, the masculine and feminine energies coming together, where two individuals can be done individually, it can be done together. Now, how does this work? Real simple, because people always say, and I'm talking about real sex magic. We're not talking about tantra. That's one aspect. We're talking about really tapping in to that powerful sexual energy through orgasm, and through that power of that orgasm being able to obtain what one individual is trying to accomplish. And that could be a multitude of things: personal, mental, emotionally, spiritual growth. But what one does in that ritual, as the two come together, and there's many different aspects of the ritual when done together, male and female, and it can be done alone, where if you're the female, you play the role of the feminine, if you're the male, the masculine, and it's more of a visualization thing at the time of orgasm, as you bring yourself to orgasm. But I found it more powerful when it's done in unison, when you do it with male, female, because as the two individuals come together, the power of the feminine orgasm and the male orgasm creates a certain type of energy and power where one can focus on in infusing those two things together, because that's what brings about what Baphomet represents: totality, equilibrium, masculine, feminine. Because at the end of the ritual, you make the proclamation, I've now become like Baphomet. So this is what the infernal union, or what one aspect of real sex magic deals with. It deals with focusing in on becoming like Baphomet. Now, when you go back into many different orders, Order Templi Orientis, you'll see Baphomet mentioned in many different rituals, in many different contexts, always when reaching some state of higher consciousness, right? Because this is symbolic of what the archetype represents. See, the problem when people got it fucked up and twisted, when they hear Baphomet, because most people that are miseducated, okay, and I say miseducated in the sense because they only have a one-sided interpretation based on shit that they again Googled on the internet. They think Baphomet is focused or affiliated with, I should say, with what we call European Satanists, okay, or what we call Satanism in America. because they see the goat head of Baphomet, the goat of Mendez. They see the pentagram, and all these symbols falsely in the last couple hundred years, recently, especially in the West, have got affiliated with what we call modern day Satanism. And that's not what true representation of left-hand path and Baphomet represents. That's one aspect, because again, as I said before, there's many groups out here, okay, that claim to be left-hand path, and in my opinion, they're not. I don't really care who likes that or doesn't, because again, I don't sit there and try to go to other groups and convince them of how I practice it. It's relevant to me. I just stay away from it because I know the realization of what I have come to of left-hand path based on the results that I've gotten is not what they proclaim, because they look at Baphomet as a representation of some deity, and it become, now we're back to fictitious things, faith and belief. So you believe that some deity was a goat-faced individual with androgynous breasts. There's so many mythological things in many different cultures that were symbolic. The problem is when people get fucked up, they want to just take certain information, and some of it they want to interpret literally and some of it symbolically. You know, you can't take certain things and just interpret them to suit your belief system. That's a bunch of bullshit, and that's the problem with a lot of these established dogmas. So what we need to focus on, becoming like Baphomet and what it represents, that is the ultimate result as far as doing the work. Okay, and this is why it's one of the most popular symbols you'll see in the occult, and this is why I wear the Baphomet symbol. This is why I connect with the Baphomet symbols. Not because I'm worshiping some fictitious deity, because we are all a representation of Baphomet. We all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And again, don't get the shit twisted. Not all feminine energy, as I said before, is just this nurturing, caring, motherly figure. That's a part of it, because that's one aspect of the feminine energy that only females can provide. Okay? That's only one part though. But there's also a warrior energy of the feminine energy, a powerful warrior energy that, in my experience in working with archetypes and the deific masks, is more intense and more powerful than masculine or male energy. And then the sexual energy, when practicing sex magic, is definitely much more intense with the female. It's more raw, it's intense, and it's passionate, and it's a lust that can't really be described and defined in terms. It's a lust that is quenched. It's something that an individual desires and can only be provided by that feminine energy when working that aspect of it. So one has to really understand, when we're talking about what Baphomet represents, one has to understand what real feminine energy is and what masculine energy is. And I'm going to tell you this. Dealing with the spiritual, we're not talking about the representation of male and female physically, as we know, as we characterize as gender on the physical realm, because yes, that's we're dealing with a whole different thing. Because the male gender on the physical realm is, macho and, brute and strong and all those things, and women are always, tried to be portrayed as more passive and nurturing creatures. That might be so to a certain extent on the physical, but when one really taps into what that energy represents on the spiritual, that's a whole nother fucking ball game. Okay, it's a whole nother story. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And you have to experience it to understand that, because there's things that make up the feminine gender that we have no connection to as men. Okay? And again, we talked about the mitochondria DNA, which runs through, rampant through the female, and minute traces of it in us. And scientists have confirmed that this mitochondria DNA is the oldest DNA on the planet. And scientists have even confirmed that females were on the planet before men were. And that's a hard pill for some individuals to stop. They call it, there was an article in Time magazine, I believe back in 1993. It was right on the cover. It was called The Mitochondrial Eve. You can go Google this and look it up, where they have confirmed through mitochondrial DNA that the female was here first. Okay? And this changes a lot of things, because most men like to think that they were first. And the reason why I said before in the past that the reason why this planet is in disarray is simply because men have been trying to rule this world for a multitude of years. with their egos, with their macho shit. And women have more of that intelligence, because if we stepped back in certain areas, let's just use politics for an example. This is why politics is in chaos, and not a good chaos that order can be made out of it, but more confusion, where men are trying to rule the planet and make decisions, and we're bringing it to the brink of destruction. So we have to be conscious of the things. We have to be able to tap into this thing of what really masculine and feminine is, because we tend to identify it exclusively with what we know as male and female in the physical realm, because we identify gender with that only. I told y'all before, go back and read the Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti, or the 7 Hermetic Principles, and study the doctrine of gender, and you will get a better understanding of what this really is and what it represents. So every individual strives to be a Baphomet. Okay, when you understand what Baphomet is and what it really represents, if you're doing the work, okay, because it is one of the most powerful representations of an archetype. And when I say that is because becoming like a Baphomet unlocks the Agatho demon, or the personal demon within. Some call it in other traditions your spirit guide. In really fluffy light traditions, it's called your guardian angel, or we like to call it your real self, your true self. That's the purpose of doing the work on this path. And why people struggle, and the people that are in that category of bitching, moaning, and complaining, and seeking attention, they're not tapping into their real self. They set unrealistic expectations because everything is still external to them, whether they're conscious of it or not. So the individual that they're really fighting and battling is not the individuals around them, is themselves. Because they're suffering from a weakness called being able to tap into their inner selves, or their Agatho demon, or their personal demon, spirit guide, whatever you want to call it, to get you through the day, that makes you feel good. You do that. But it's about doing the work, okay? It's not about talking about it. It's not about I've read 500 books and I know so much shit and I can spit a bunch of shit and regurgitate it because I've memorized so many contexts and so many books. Who gives a shit? Because my first question I asked to those individuals, great, you know, I've read thousands of books, okay? I've studied many different things. I've engulfed myself in the last 20 plus years in many different cultures and dogmas and philosophies. And I realized it only got me so far, okay? What got me over the hump was when I started to create my own spiritual path. I started, whatever I gravitated towards, because we're going to vibrate on a certain frequency where we gravitate towards certain shit, but I've learned that what my spirit gravitates towards, be it Arab mysticism, Sufism, something I gravitate towards and I like, vampirism, I will take those rituals and create my own personal rituals, and of course ancient Egypt, where it has all of its origin. Once I started to do that, that's when I got over the hump. I started to see results, because I started tapping into my Agatho demon, or my true self. Okay? The essence of who I really was came out. Not who I thought I was, or not who I wanted people to see me as, who I actually was. Because some of us spend our whole life chasing a fairy tale that's not a fucking reality. Because we're chasing some fictitious pie in the sky, some great reward at the end of a rainbow, if we do these modified behaviors that we're programmed with through all these dogmas. Do this, do it that way, behave this way, dress like this, eat this, do that. If you do all these things, there's there's a pot of fucking gold over the rainbow. That's a bunch of bullshit, okay? Only to find out that there's really nothing there. All it is an illusion. And as I said before, the greatest secret is there is no secret. But if I can convince you and keep creating the illusion, and this is how these leaders of these fucking cults and these groups do over the years, if I can convince you that I know something you don't, I can command your loyalty. You understand? And people know that have worked with me over the last 20 plus years. When we dialogue or when I do a consultation, I'm not telling you you need to do this or you need to do that and you have to do this and you need to, and it costs all this money to do it. That's not how I operate and work. Those that know me know that. I give you the information you need, and I tell you, you're going to carry out the ritual yourself. I will give you, suggestions and things that you need to gather, do, etc. But you're going to do that shit yourself. I'm not going to do it for you, because if I do it for you, it becomes pointless. The reason why you do it for yourself is because, again, you're stamping your own personal energy on it. That's what's going to bring about change. Some people get pissed off because when they get the information, they don't do anything with it, and then months, weeks go by, and then weeks or months go by, whatever, and they want to know why they're not getting no results. Because talking about it and just reading about it is only going to get you so far. All it did was create a concept in your mind and in your psyche, and that's it. It didn't do anything else. So this path is about doing the work and becoming like Baphomet. It's that simple. Become a Baphomet and do the work, okay? And I say that symbolically because if somebody says, what is the objective on this path? What is the objective of becoming an adept of the black arts? And it's quite simple. To free yourself from all the illusion, the mental slavery, the mental chains that have confound you to ignorance. Once that is removed and you tap into what we call the isolated consciousness, you're not a conformist, you are now vibrating on your own personal frequency and you're tapping into the divine that brings about that great change within. That's when you know you're at the threshold now. So now you're at the threshold. You are at the door. So when you are at that door, kick that motherfucker down and come in. It's that simple. And then you will see the change. And again, I want to finish with this last thing. I'm going to wrap it up with this. And I want to make this clear. And again, those that know me know this. Okay? You don't have to convince everybody of what you know. Okay? You don't have to, if you're getting results, you only share that at certain times with certain people because the right time and the right moment will come when to share that with like mind and like others. When you cannot go on this crusade to convince everybody of what you fucking know and want them to agree with you and accept the shit. That doesn't work. That is the ignorance. That's what religious fanatics do. The only person you need to convince is yourself. And as long, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, as long as you're a practitioner on this path and you're getting results, that's the person that needs to convince. And it's not necessary for everybody that you have to go out of your way to convince everybody. As I said before in previous classes and videos, you will command people's interest and respect by the way you carry yourself, by your character, by the example you set. So when people look at you, regardless if they agree with you or not, like you or not, they say, man, look at that person. They never get caught up in any bullshit. Look at that person. They're successful in life in all areas, financially, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all. You know, you are a living example of the information that you practice. By setting that example is all you need to do. You don't need to get into this big historical debate over nonsense. I don't waste my time. Even though I can crush that shit, and I've done it for years, to the point where, shit, I can make some people cry on their religious faith and beliefs. And I've done it before by stupid, ignorant individuals that want to feel the need to step out and attack because they become fanatical and they think that their religion and their faith and their philosophy is the only correct information on the entire fucking planet. That's when you crush a motherfucker and you step on their neck. But there's times for that. But I avoid that at all costs because it's irrelevant. It's only necessary when one has to spiritually defend themselves. So I don't waste my time with that because most dogmas and philosophies and all these conscious circles spend more time arguing and fighting with each other about who's right or wrong. And at the end of the day, nothing is getting accomplished. Nothing is getting done. There's no results. There's no transformation. There's no change. All we're doing is our egos are puffed up. We're walking around with our chests out. We think we know some shit. But no change. No results. That's what this path is about. Real simple. Do the fucking work. Stop talking. Stop bullshitting. And as I said this before, man. You heard me say this. Go back to old videos from a couple years ago. You cannot fake the funk on this path, okay? I've said that a million times before. If you're faking the funk on this path, it's going to show. You have to be about it. And your example, your character will show if you are about it. You can fake the funk on any other path. You can play Egyptian, conscious, Kemetic. You can play Buddhist. You can play Ifa, Santeria. Because all you got to do is have the look, put on the garb and the trimmings, and poof, you're all of a sudden the Ifa master or whatever the fuck it is you want people to see you as. See, this path, you can wear ritualistic robes and symbols, or you can be dressed just like me, lounging around the house in a fucking t-shirt and pair of shorts, or go to the store like this. because you don't feel the need that you have to profess to everybody who it is and what you are. But people can look at you and sense something different in you. They say, there's something different about that motherfucker. Because just by the way you vibrate, by the way your frequency you give off, by the way you carry yourself, people can tap into that. And I said this before, we all know, we walk in the grocery store, sometimes we feel like people are looking at us in a different way. That's how you set the example. Because when you're on this path of tapping in correctly and connecting to your Agatha demon, you start to vibrate at a different frequency. You start to evolve on a different level, and people sense that shit. So that's different as opposed to the individual that's got to wear big ass onks the size of Flavor Flav clocks, and they got to get all these African symbols and jewelry, whatever path it is. They want to walk around carrying a staff and big ass onks, because that's a person that's in need of attention. Okay, when you got to do all those physical things because you want to attract attention to yourself, because you got to cater to your ego, because all you're projecting is, I feel the need that everybody needs to know what it is I am, what it is I fucking know, so people can walk up to me and start asking me, oh, what it is that you do. That's the ego. And that's the bad part of the ego, because the ego has a good aspect. Ego is what protects you. Okay? Ego is what keeps you safe in the universe when utilized correctly. But ego can be a motherfucker when used in a pompous, jackass way. That's the difference. That's the difference of somebody who's just about talking about it and the difference between somebody who's about doing the work. They ain't got to talk about it. They move and they flow. A real black adept works in the shadows, works in the darkness, doesn't need to do everything to be seen. Remember I said I believe I did a class on it, I can't remember, we did it in the ritual. And they even used the phrase in the Assassin's Creed movie that just came out last year. Okay? One must go into the darkness to do the work of the light. I can tell you part of the ritual on the 27th deals with that. Let me say that again. One must go into the darkness to do the work of the light. A real black adept works in the darkness and manifests that light, which is a representation on this path of the intellect. Right? The illuminated ones, the Illuminati, right? People don't know what the fuck that is. They think they do. Lucifer means light barrier. Being a Luciferian or practicing Luciferianism is somebody that practices high levels of knowledge and intellect. The Luciferianism isn't a Satanist on the term and definition of what a European Satanist represents. It's a bunch of fucking stupidity. Lucifer, light bearer, Lucifer. Okay? Get the shit right, people. Stop being spooked out by all of this nonsense and uneducated people that don't know. That's what a true Luciferian is. Or somebody that practices Luciferianism. It's somebody who is enlightened by high levels of consciousness and intellect, which is a whole nother story. Maybe we'll do some videos on that. That's a whole nother story, dealing with Luciferianism. But that's what it is. Look, man, I can go on. For you guys that know me, I can. I don't like to go on and on for too long because then the message don't sink in. I'm not one of them dudes that does a 3, 4, 5 hour video. To me, that shit is pointless because I don't give a fuck who you are. You're not watching a 3, 4, 5 hour video and retaining half of that shit. And I don't like to make videos where you got to go back 5, 6, and 7 times and listen to it to grasp it. Hey, it might be your thing. You might like watching a 3, 4, 5 hour video, but that's not my thing. I don't do that. So I try to keep it within reasonable, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours max. It just depends. I've done some 3, 4, in group settings and classes. Sometimes it goes longer. But I like the message to stay concrete, stay firm, so it gets home. So look, again, it's about becoming a Baphomet and doing the work. All right? So what we got for this week, we will see you guys on one more video next week, and then the actual video on the weekend of the 27th will be the class from the event. As you know, I record the class from the event and I post it here on YouTube. And again, just so people know, when we do these rituals and events, they are free. We don't charge to do them. You just got to show up. Find yourself a way to get there. That's it. Make yourself accommodations to stay in the area for a day or two, attend the ritual, and go back. I would suggest individuals that are really sincere and interested and want to experience, you're more than welcome to come. Just contact us. Again, we do this because we love to do this. It's that simple. It's what we do. This is our life. We don't rely on doing this as our sole means of income, whereas some individuals do, and they run all types of hustles because this is what they do. We do this because this is our way of life, is what we do. But anyway, appreciate everybody listening. Hotep, peace, love, and hair grease, and all that good shit. And we will see you on the next video. Peace.